command you to do something here. Get ready for draft season with the Roto World Fantasy Football Draft Guide, featuring content from Matthew Berry, including player rankings, profiles, projections, mock drafts, and more. You can go to NBCSports.com/draft guide. Use the promo code Berry20. You can save 20% at checkout. The man that is always on time.
There he
is. Talented.
The timely man.
By the way, just so you know, if you want to, there's the promo code 20 that gets you, Berry20, that gets you 20% off.
Yeah.
But if you would like, if you're like, you know what, that's too much savings for me, you can use the promo code Connor5 for 5% off.
Right.
You know, named after Connor Rogers, who's co-host over at the Happy Hour, and I know he's been here on Unbuttoned as well.
Right.
Or J10, also after Jay Croucher, another guy that's been on Unbuttoned.
Sure.
So it depends on how much savings you want.
Right.
If you want the full 20%, then it's me. But some people are like, that's too much savings.
Too much.
I would rather give the NBC
Some just don't want to type your name in. They might just want to write Jay Croucher in there.
Yeah, J10 or Connor5. You'd be surprised people are using those other two promo codes.
and then at the end, you just kind of compare who's driving more subscriptions, right? Yeah,
that's
you just
exactly
see
right.
Who
it's not a totally fair fight, but yeah, that's how we've arranged it. By the way, I have a bone to pick here. By the way, guys, I want to be clear. So I was told 11 a.m.
Okay.
No, listen, I showed up at after 11 a.m., so I was late, but I wasn't as late as you made it seem.
Okay, sure. Hey,
first off, by the way, can we just talk about the fact that Stamford, Connecticut, which is where the beautiful NBC sports facility is.
It's the most annoying town to drive in America.
I might as well be driving to another country. It's in terms of there's one way to get here.
Yeah.
It's a freeway, and it's 95 that is the most busy thing in the world. And so for whatever reason, at 9:30 this morning, again, it's an hour and 10 minutes if I have no traffic from my house to here. But for whatever reason, at 9:45 this morning, they shut it down to do construction to one lane. And that, now I'm in bumper-to-bumper traffic for a half hour. So I cop to being late, but I do not accept being as late as you thought I was.
Okay, sure, whatever.
Fair
you
enough.
already have a reputation. You'll be late for your funeral. Right? That's what we know.
You know what? That I would be happy with. I have a lot of skills, Chris Simms. I have a lot of skills. Time management is not one of them. I fully admit that.
I push the limit, too. Stanford is annoying. Yeah. I come from a different direction where I have to, and Ahmed's heard me say this, it takes me 20 minutes to get to work. It takes me 10 minutes to get basically 98% of the way.
Right.
But somebody paid the mayor of Stamford $1 million extra to have a light at every possible spot in the world.
Lights.
Plus, they act like it's New York City, where everybody stopped, right? At all 4 spots. And it's is there 1 million people coming out of a stadium or the city here? Oh, wait, nobody's crossing the street. Why are we all stopped here?
It is
brutal. It drives me crazy. Or there'll be 1,000 cars going in one direction and an equal light for a street that I've never seen a car come down ever, but they have an equal light. And I go, I've never seen a car come down that light, but I sit here at this light every day and act like there's going to be somebody.
It's absolutely brutal. By the way, Ahmed, for both sides of this particular situation. Yeah. Simms also referenced the fact that I was late to my own show once.
Yeah.
So this is true. This is absolutely true. I was completely. I missed the first half hour of my show. Yeah. Here's why. There was a triple murder on 95. Okay. There was 3 different people were shot. Yeah. And where they shut down the entire freeway.
Sure.
So it's
you don't plan on that.
You don't plan on that, and there's literally no other way to get here other than this one
It's rough on these streets of Connecticut. You better be ready, man.
There
was other times where there was not a triple murder, and you were also late though. So
I actually don't remember that. I'm not going to dispute it because it could be right, but I don't remember that.
Well, this is what happens when NBC makes employees come back to work. You get talking about the commute for 15 to 20 minutes.
What I am working on, Chris Simms, I'm just going to throw this out here, and you tell me, give me some advice, because both you guys are NBC sports veterans. You guys have been here a long time. Sure. I'm the new guy, right? This is just my first year. So give me some advice, and just talk to me. Don't tell anyone else this. Okay. But I need to figure out a way to get the Florio deal, because Florio's holed up in his house in West Virginia.
Right.
Doesn't have to leave. He's got. That's what I need. I need.
You don't want to be that.
Well, not in West Virginia,
Yeah, well,
but
no.
like I want to, like you know, yeah, like
don't
yeah.
be a recluse.
I want
and
to,
then mad at the world and antisocial, and you can't do anything.
I need to
and
figure
have to get 70 different like vaccination shots to do anything because you can't leave your house.
Well,
I mean,
that's all. That's all the Florio stuff. I'm not saying I want that personality, but I'm saying I want
that personality
setup.
comes with it, though, is what Chris is saying.
You'll
You
grow
hold
into
yourself-
that. You'll
grow
become
into
that.
No.
You're a social butterfly.
This is my ideal. This is my dream. And you just tell me, like, who do I need to talk to internally at NBC Sports? What do I need to do to get enough juice? You know,
There's so
get
many
that
jokes
Florio
I can
juice?
make right now, but I'm not gonna.
Well, it's your show. But I just where I get that Florio deal where like I could, you know, basically between the Monday through Friday, I could, you know, do my show from a studio at my house.
It would be nice.
And then on Sundays come in for fantasy football pregame.
You're
and then
enough
football
of a
night in
diva
America.
already. Just shut up and shut up work, okay?
Long story short.
It's a dream that'll die hard, is what you're telling me. Fair enough.
Long story short, it just means we have less time to talk about fantasy, and now we have even less time.
Yeah, that's all right. This is a good talk.
Let's get to it.
Impossible here. All right, so your ride or die.
Yes.
Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Yes, sir.
My Detroit Lions.
Yes, although apparently had some literally like 20 minutes ago.
A little injury?
Little injury.
I thought I saw that.
7-7 drills.
Oh, my gosh.
Trainers are looking at him, so I don't know. We'll see what's going to go on
falling
there.
apart for my Lions already. I'm nervous a little bit.
He's your ride or die,
Yes, sir.
out of nowhere guy. He's not the number one,
No.
right? He was like 10 or 11 maybe on the list?
I have him at number 10 overall.
Right.
So I have him as a first round pick. He's not going as a first round pick. He is going, you know, kind of in the, although I've been, other fantasy analysts have yelled at me because he was going like mid to late second round.
And you blew it up now.
And yes, and since I made him my ride or die, in all seriousness, like somebody yelled at me the other day. He said, you know, like, he got drafted ahead of CeeDee Lamb in my league, you know. But yes, the point of the ride or die is not like, hey, here's this unknown gem that I'm unearthing. It is like, here's a player that I believe is undervalued. Here's a player that is known but isn't as well known as he should be. Here's somebody that I think will be an elite fantasy superstar this year. I'm planting my flag. I'm saying this is my guy. This is who I am riding or dying with this year. Again, so last year was Jalen Hurts. It's not like Jalen Hurts was an unknown quantity, but he was going in the 7th round. He was the 8th quarterback off the board. And I said, I think number one quarterback in fantasy is within the range of possibilities, in the range of outcomes for Jalen Hurts. He ended up finishing as the number one quarterback on a points per game basis last year. Amon-Ra St. Brown is not an unknown quantity. He's been a good fantasy wide receiver. My point is merely, I don't think people understand how great he is.
Right.
Like that the stat I gave on Football Night in America when you and I were doing our segment together, Simms, was that since week 13 of the 2021 season, which was sort of his breakout game, from that time, literally the only player in the NFL with more receptions from that point till now is Justin Jefferson. He's second in the NFL in receptions. He's third in fantasy points. The only person with more fantasy points than him is Jefferson and Devontae Adams in that time frame. And no one, when you talk about the elite wide receivers in the NFL, when you talk about the Jeffersons and the Cooper Kupps and the Cooper Kupps and the Devontae Adams and the CeeDee Lambs of the world, Jamar Chases, thank you, Stephon Diggs. Yep. He doesn't get mentioned in that level. He doesn't get mentioned as one of the elite wide receivers in the NFL. And my argument is he is, and people don't realize it. Yeah. And I think after this year, he will be in that class. I think he's got top 5 fantasy wide receiver upside. I'm not taking him ahead of Chase or Jefferson or Kupp.
Gotcha.
But I do think he's in that next tier.
Gotcha. I love you. I love you. You love you, man. You really do. And you put yourself out there too. You're not. You go off the board, and I respect that about you a lot. And it's usually through thought out things, and you have a good gut for football, as I said about you on Monday. You really do. You see the game well. So you in reality and fantasy,
means a lot
you're
coming
good.
from you.
And so here's another who do we got a Amon-Ra St. Brown type of guy coming down the tracks at all? Is it I'll throw some names. Chris Olave. Garrett Wilson,
yes.
Who else am I missing that was kind of it's going to be a second-year guy that can, Jerry Jeudy, I know he's third year. Anybody else that you think,
listen,
watch out?
I think Olave is going to have a monster year, right? I mean, one of the things about Derek Carr is that he is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL in terms of deep balls, right? I mean, he was top 5 in the NFL in deep ball rate and deep ball completion percentage, passes thrown 15 yards more downfield over the last 2 years. And so Olave, I think, is going to be a guy that can really benefit from that quarterback. When I was putting together my list of potential fantasy ride or dies, Olave was on the short list, as was Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson, as we talked about at the Hall of Fame game, Garrett Wilson averaged over 17 fantasy points a game with Joe Flacco and Mike White.
Yeah.
Now, I had to cherry pick that a little bit because if you add in Zach Wilson numbers, it's like 7 points, right? And we only have like a very limited amount of time on Football Night in America. But the fact is that whatever Aaron Rodgers winds up being this year, it's going to be an upgrade. I think personally a significant upgrade, but it's going to be an upgrade over what he had last year when he's productive as a rookie. So I'm with you. I think Garrett Wilson has a monster season. I'll give you another guy. I'll give you a couple of guys as we're just talking wide receivers here. I like Jahan Dotson. Again, I'm a Commanders fan, so I'm a homer. Chris and I have gone back and forth on this, but I think Jahan Dotson is really, really interesting this year in terms of just as a player that when he was out there last year, he missed some time, but he was out there catching balls from Carson Wentz and Taylor Heineke. He's a baller.
I'm with you.
I think there's a better than average chance that Sam Howell is going to be the best quarterback he's played with in his very short pro career.
Yeah.
I think there's an argument that Terry McLaurin, that Sam Howell's going to be the best quarterback that he's played with.
Right.
Like I don't know where you are on Howell, where you had him when he was coming out of UNC, but I kind of like the kid. Am I being a homer here,
No,
Simms?
I don't think you're being a homer. He was my number 5 quarterback that year. There were some things about him that I'd want to see him improve, but he's got a good natural feel for the game. He can throw the ball down the field with accuracy. He can make plays that way. I'm big into that. And then that offense with those weapons you're talking about, we did an exercise last week, picking one guy to watch in the preseason. I picked Dotson because I was like, he looks like he's got the ability to become a real number 1 receiver. And if he becomes that, and you already have a number 1 in Terry McLaurin, I'd go watch the fuck out for that offense. So I'm with you in that thought, let alone there's some other things you got to worry about. It's not just those two. The 2 running backs are good, decent tight end, Curtis Samuel at receiver. I mean, there's some other elements there. So I hear you in that, Jahan Dotson.
I'll give you another guy just in terms as we're talking sort of younger guys that haven't broken out yet. But if you look at sort of the underlying metrics of Nico Collins in Texas, the Texans, again, it's going to be a bad offense, and C.J. Stroud is a rookie, so they're going to struggle somewhat. But the 2 wide receivers there, and I know they've got Robert Woods, but Nico Collins and Tank Dell, who really flashed in his first preseason game. But I got a chance to interview Tank Dell and C.J. Stroud at the NFLPA rookie premiere. And all they did was basically talk about each other in glowing terms. Obviously Tank Dell went to school in Houston, so he lives 10 minutes from the stadium. Right. CJ Stroud's he's been my tour guide. Every day, all we do is he shows me around Houston, and then we hang out, and we're playing video games, we're talking ball, whatever, we're chopping it up. And on Nico Collins, again, health has been an issue for him, but the underlying metrics with him are really, really impressive. So those are some under the radar guys that probably don't get mentioned that often.
I like that. So let's take a step back for a second here because I have my first draft coming up here in a week and a half. What are the big trends that I should be looking out for here? Because it's usually been running backs all in the first round. I think that one we don't see that as much anymore. No. It's wide receivers more. Quarterbacks, are they about what they have been in the past? Tight end with Kelsey? What are the big storylines if you're getting into your draft for the first time?
Sure, so let's start at quarterback, right? So at quarterback, I think more often than not, you kind of want, hopefully, an elite option. And in essence, this is something we talked about. In today's NFL, to be a relevant fantasy quarterback, you need to be one of 2 things. You need to be a dual threat, somebody that gets you fantasy points with your arm and your leg, a Jalen Hurts, a Josh Allen, a Lamar Jackson.
Right.
Or you need 35 to 40 passing touchdown upside, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, Patrick Mahomes. You need to be one of those 2 guys. Somebody like Aaron Rodgers is going to be a much better real-life NFL quarterback than he will be fantasy quarterback. Derek Carr, Kirk Cousins, they're fine. They're solid kind of 12, 14 range quarterbacks. But in essence, I actually think because there's so much kind of sameness there, once you get past kind of the elite guys, there's 8 guys that I feel really good about this year. And then you get into, and Deshaun Watson I have at 9. And it sort of depends on how you feel about Watson. But after that, it gets kind of you're in kind of the Derek Carr, Kirk Cousins range, and you're sort of the one wild card I'll give you. So I actually think, you want to be one of the first 8 people in your league to draft a quarterback. And I like all the obvious guys that I just mentioned. Justin Fields is in that mix as well.
He is in that mix. Okay.
Yeah, because of the rushing.
Yeah,
and I think he improves. The thing that was interesting about, and I'm just sort of all over the place, but
you're okay.
Justin Fields, I thought what was interesting about that preseason game, he threw 2 bubble screens, one to DJ Moore, one to Khalil Herbert, both who took him to the house.
Right.
But what was interesting there is whatever, you can't count that, right? Like he had 100 yards on 2 touchdown passes, whatever, he threw him 2 yards and those guys made plays. But to me, the point there was he suddenly has playmakers.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, last year, Darnell Mooney goes down in the middle of the season. They trade for Chase Claypool, whatever. But Dave Montgomery, who's a nice player, but more of a plotter, you know. I mean, all
These
of a sudden you're
here.
those are game.
Right.
DJ Moore and Khalil Herbert, who was on the roster last year but didn't get on the field much because of Montgomery. All of a sudden, there's some speed and some weapons for Justin Fields, who obviously is a huge weapon himself. So I think that to me is the exciting part about
It's
Justin.
another part of a successful formula you can see that can unlock Justin Fields and the offense in general, and it'll all work and help.
It's something else that a defense coordinator suddenly has to worry about, whereas before it's just how do we contain Fields?
All right, wait, before you go to another team, DJ Moore, do you think he has that type of year? I mean, it looks like he's under draft. I mean, for me, he's been one of those guys where I go, he's one of the superstar 5 best receivers in football if he was on a good team with a good quarterback. He hasn't that. Is he going to be drafted that way?
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think he's going to be drafted that way, but I absolutely agree with you. I think if we were just talking pure talent, he's on that short list of elite wide receivers in the NFL. There's no question. And again, as we were just sort of talking about, Sam Howell might be the best quarterback that McLaurin and Dotson have ever played with. I feel like Justin Fields is clearly the best quarterback that DJ Moore's ever played with, right? I mean, when we go through the Sam Darnolds and the Kyle Allens of the world, and even Cam Newton towards the end of his career, there's going to be, I think DJ Moore and Justin Fields will really connect. The only issue with DJ Moore is the touchdowns.
Yeah,
he's just a guy that doesn't score a lot of touchdowns, and has that been because of his size or because the teams he's been on have wanted to go running? He was on the team with McCaffrey for a while. So that's the only thing about DJ Moore from a fantasy perspective is can he get above 4 or 5 touchdowns this year? But I do think he can be, and it certainly wouldn't shock me if a year from now we're sitting here talking about, hey, what about that top 8 fantasy season, that top 12 fantasy season that we saw from DJ Moore? And the other guy that's in that top 8 that I don't think I've mentioned yet is Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah.
Who I think is just going to have a monster season. Trevor Lawrence is another guy that, like Herbert, like Mahomes, you don't think of him as a pure Josh Allen or Jalen Hurts type rusher, but he is mobile enough to get you 30 yards a game the way that Herbert and Mahomes do.
Right.
And those points add up. Everyone's back from last year. Second year in Peterson's system.
Yep.
You got Ridley, Zay Jones, Evan Ingram all back. I'm sorry, not Ridley. You've got Christian Kirk, Zay Jones, and Evan Ingram all back.
Yeah,
Plus
Ridley's
ETN,
an addition.
and Ridley's an addition.
Right.
Calvin Ridley comes in. He's a fascinating guy this year.
Definitely.
It's not a division that scares you.
Right.
Defensively.
Mm-hmm.
We all think Lawrence is a hell of a player. It felt like last year, Chris, taking fantasy out of it for a second, it felt like towards the middle of the year, and I know this is something you and I talked about sort of off camera and just in the, in the room where we're all watching the games, felt like somewhere last year there was a game where was it the Bears game? There was a game where you just sort of saw the light go on for Trevor Lawrence where it was just like, okay, I'm now a franchise quarterback. Get on my back.
Right.
We're going down the field. We're scoring.
Yeah.
We're winning this game. I'm doing it. And just from that time on, and of course the playoff game against the Chargers,
yes.
He was that guy we thought he was going to be when he was the number 1 overall pick.
He had the Raiders game where they did the big comeback, right? The Ravens game, the Cowboys game.
The Ravens game is the one I was thinking of.
Right? It was 27-10 maybe, and they came back. He made some big-time throws, and we were like, oh, geez, that's the number 1 pick. That's the guy. Right. Definitely. I'm with you there. And, I think he's one of the 5-6 best quarterbacks in football right now. I'm expecting him. I want to ask you about running backs, too.
Okay.
All right?
The last quarterback I'll mention very quickly.
Okay, fine. Do that. Go ahead.
I think Anthony Richardson's really interesting.
Yeah.
Really interesting. I know they want to limit his throwing. I know his passing is still raw. But again, because he is such a threat on the ground, think about Jalen Hurts or Lamar Jackson's rookie year, where they didn't let either of those guys really throw that much. I would argue that both those guys were top 10 fantasy quarterbacks on a point per game basis their rookie year because the rushing is so significant. I would argue that Richardson honestly has better weapons around him. I think Michael Pittman's better than anyone that Lamar Jackson or Jalen Hurts played with in their rookie year.
Sure, okay.
Right? And Jonathan Taylor, we'll see what happens with that situation, but assuming Taylor is back, he's a better running back than either of those guys had. There's more. I think Alec Pierce is kind of an interesting young player as well.
Yeah, agreed.
So anyway, what I said on my show the other day was I said, I have Anthony Richardson at quarterback 12. He's going as QB 16. So I'm well ahead of consensus on him. I am at QB 12, and I think I still might be too low.
Right.
Richardson wouldn't shock me if he just. I think that kid's special.
Yeah, we wax poetically about him on. There's a lot to like, and with that formula, they have a good defense, all that. I wouldn't be shocked if
and the right coach for him.
The right coach, the system fits, and they'll work the right pass, concepts into the whole formula like you're talking about. Plus, they'll get down to the 3 or 4 yard line. He'll get a lot of quarterback touchdown runs that way, yards on top of it. All right, so I just want to ask you before because I know you got to go because I was going to ask about Travis Etienne because I'm expecting this year. But is there anybody else that you go?
I got 10 more minutes. I'm good.
Okay. All right. But is there anybody else at the running back position you think that's flying under the radar that you expect kind of a blow up year here?
I think I don't know why I keep going back to the Texans. I do think Dameon Pierce is underrated. I think he's somebody that like towards the end of last year they sort of. Kind of put him in bubble wrap a little bit. He got banged up, and then they just sort of limited him. But here's the thing about the Texans. Like, that's a really good offensive line. There's so much about how they're going to be rebuilding, but that's a really good offensive line. Defensive-minded coach, rookie quarterback. I think what they're going to want to do, try to run the ball, play good defense, try to keep it competitive, limit what C.J. Stroud has to do. So I think when you think about there's so few running backs in the NFL that are like bell cow running backs, right? There's the obvious, the Derrick Henrys of the world, the McCaffreys, the Ecklers, the guys that that go at the top of their drafts. But Dameon Pierce isn't being drafted like a bell cow running back, and he's going to be. And I'm not saying the Texans are going to be great. They're not, right? It's a rebuilding year.
No, but
they're going to be more competitive than you give them. Like I think Ryans is a hell of a coach. I think they've got more talent than they probably get it credit for. Again, I think it's. They've got a good offensive line.
Shanahan running system, got all that.
They're gonna move the ball. Yep. They're not gonna get blown out. I don't think they're gonna get blown out.
Right.
And so Dameon Pierce is somebody interesting. Another guy that gets completely undrafted is James Conner. Because everyone's just like, Arizona, they're terrible. Who knows? Colt McCoy, blah, 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 blah. James Conner. All he does is play every single down. He's a really good pass-catching running back. So even if they're getting blown out, he's still going to be on the field. He's still catching the ball. And so that's a guy, again, that's going like in the 6th round. That is somebody that is going to touch the ball 20 times a game. Fantasy production comes from literally 2 things, and 2 things only, opportunity and talent. I don't think anyone questions James Conner's talent or toughness around the goal line. He's one of the best in the NFL. And opportunity. Like, they have no one else. We talked about sort of fantasy winners and losers, and kind of the fantasy winners with Dalvin Cook going to the Jets and Ezekiel Elliott going to the Patriots. James Conner was one of those guys because they didn't sign a veteran. Right. They've got Ingram there. They've got a couple of younger guys, but as long as Conner's healthy, he's going to get a massive, massive workload.
What does Cook and Breece Hall look like with the Jets right now for you?
So my take is I know everyone's saying like, oh, this means Breece Hall is really hurt. I don't think that's what it means. No. I think what it means is twofold. Number one is that behind Breece Hall's coming off a major injury and he's a young kid, right? And so this allows them, and behind him they had Michael Carter, they had Bam Knight.
They got unproven guys.
They have young, unproven guys.
They got a 40-year-old quarterback who changes plays at the line of scrimmage and they do intricate things in pass protection. Like, they got to depend on somebody.
Right. By the way, a 40-year-old quarterback who gave up $35 million or whatever it is in guaranteed money to win this year.
Yeah.
And so, like, he's not doing that because, like, I'm making too much money, Jets. You guys print up some more T-shirts or whatever. Like, He's not like, go get me some help. And so think about 2021, the last year that Nathaniel Hackett was the OC in Green Bay with Rodgers as his quarterback. Oh, by the way, Rodgers won the MVP that year.
Yep.
What did they do that year? It was Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon. Now, obviously, Dalvin Cook and Breece Hall are very different types of players than Jones and Dillon, but the fact of the matter is a two-headed rushing attack that took some pressure off Rodgers, that made it a balanced offense.
Yeah.
That's what worked for the Packers and Hackett that year. And so a guy like Dalvin Cook, who is a veteran, who, like, the issues with Cook in Minnesota from a football perspective were money related, not talent. Like, again, maybe a little bit if you look at the efficiency metrics, has he lost his step? Maybe, but he's still a very good running back, right? And so this allows them to have kind of a 1-2 punch with Breece Hall and Dalvin Cook, and it allows them to bring Hall back slowly so that he's full health second half of the year when they're making a playoff push. Their schedule the first 6 games is absolutely brutal. And so I think it's another veteran, to your point, another veteran back there that when Aaron Rodgers just does one of these, whatever, Dalvin Cook knows exactly what that means and is going to hit the right gap or pick up the right blitz or whatever. And so from a fantasy perspective, I have Breece Hall, I think, at 14, and I have Dalvin Cook at 26. So I have Breece Hall as kind of a mid-tier RB2, and Dalvin Cook is kind of a flex play. And my expectation is usage-wise, it will be very similar once Breece Hall is up to full strength. Usage-wise, it'll be very similar to Jones and Dillon, where Jones averaged about 18 touches a game, and Dillon averaged 11 to 13. So that's what I think it will be.
Yeah, I could see that. I think that would probably be the proper balance there, right? And I think you hit on all the right things there altogether. I mean, anything else out there that you think people are missing as far as fantasy or anything there? I want to wax poetically about you being in Avengers Endgame that he didn't know about.
We don't have time.
He didn't even know
about that.
He didn't know you were only in the highest grossing film ever.
I didn't know.
He doesn't watch movies.
I didn't believe it.
Yeah, I am the highest grossing. Look, there's a you see
Look
there
at that guy.
That's me in the that's me in the movie next to Thor
with the cape on. You with the cape on.
Tony Stark, and of course that's Alexander
You're a lot taller
Pierce.
than Robert Redford.
I am.
Oh yeah, you are.
I am indeed. You know what's amazing is about this particular shot is so that was the last movie that Robert Redford ever did. Like he has not. He's retired. He's retired.
Right.
So again,
he
I
worked
hope Robert.
with you and he said the hell of this.
Listen. Robert Redford is beloved. We love him, right? And we hope that he lives for another 50 years.
Right.
It's an icon.
But he's an icon. But just at some point, whenever, because there's an expiration date on all of us. Like like at the Oscars when they do in memoriam. Like, do they show a shot from his last movie that he ever did?
Oh.
And there's my dumbass standing next to him.
He's already thinking of his next Hollywood diva moment.
I'm just
here.
asking.
Again, he's like, if that guy dies, I'm going to be on the Oscars one day.
Again, I hope he lives 50 years. He could not have been he's an icon. He is a legend. He is, he is the GOAT. And by the way, on set, he could not have been nicer or more kinding. Cool. And I'm just like, who am I next to Robert Redford? But he was like very welcoming and asking me, like he loved that guy. But it was pointed out to me funny that like obviously, whenever that day comes, and it's going to come for all of us, like a nation's going to mourn, and they will probably, one of the things they will do when they, look back upon this brilliant man's career is they will show a shot from his last movie that he ever did.
Yep.
This isn't his last scene, though, was it? Did he do another scene after that? That was the last scene,
that's
too?
the last time he announced his retirement after that movie came out.
Right.
Wow.
So I'm just,
He was passing the torch. He was passing the torch.
Can you tell your friend to watch the movie you're in?
I do not need to. It's the last one for Robert.
How have you not seen Avengers yet?
So many
You're
movies
the only person on the planet that hasn't. It's the highest grossing movie of all time worldwide. It's the only movie I've ever done. So, on a per movie basis, I am the highest grossing actor of all time worldwide.
Better root against Barbie.
And he's going to be on the Oscar show.
Barbie's coming for us. There's no question. I got to see Barbie. The only other last piece of fantasy advice I will give you in terms, because you asked about tight end. We did talk a little bit wide receivers.
Yeah.
At tight end, I think there's an elite tier. Kelsey's in a tier by himself, and then I think it's Andrews and Hawkinson. I do like Hawkinson this year, former Lion.
Yep.
But in this year, I want to either be one of the first guys in my league to draft a tight end, one of those elite guys, or I want to be one of the last. Because after you get past kind of those big three, like, I like Dallas Goedert. I like Dalton Schultz. I think Freiermuth will be fine, right? I mean, I think there's enough guys there in that. From that point forward,
that you don't need to.
Well, I mean, I think Waller has a big year for the Giants. I really like him, and you've got Kittle in there as well. I think Higbee is underrated because he's like all they've got in Los Angeles other than Cooper Kupp.
Yeah.
I'm semi-obsessed with my guy Chigakonkwo in Tennessee.
I can see that.
You want a late round flyer? Luke Musgrave, the rookie tight end in Green Bay. He is just He is so fast, and he is blowing by people in camp.
Yeah.
And literally, they have Christian Watson, and that there's no one else that demands targets in that offense.
He was open in the game, and Love missed him the other night, actually. And a deep
he
crosser.
is going to be such a mismatch problem for linebackers. And so I think he's really interesting. Everyone loves Dalton Kincaid in Buffalo as well in terms of the tight end. But my point is that if you don't get one of those guys, if you don't get one of those elite guys,
wait a little bit.
Wait, because I think there's enough sameness towards the back part of the the 8 through 12, 8 through 13 range of tight ends.
There's a lot of guys who could finish 7 through 12.
I think Hunter Henry has a big year in Bill O'Brien's offense. He's going to use a lot more 2 tight end sets. There's a connection between Mac Jones and Hunter Henry. Gesicki already got banged up a little bit, so
Yo, thanks for watching, homies. I appreciate it as always. The NFL season is right around the corner, so now it's your turn to hit subscribe to Chris Simms Unbuttoned. If you want to get all the training camp battles, preseason film review, playoff predictions, and much, much more, you know where to find it. It's right here, Chris Simms Unbuttoned. Please subscribe. Thanks again for watching. Peace out, homies. See you soon.